I want to welcome Kevin Press from Sun Life Financial here this morning. Kevin, how are you?
Very well.
Good to have you. Thanks for coming. Dr. Ian Arnold is also here, Chair of the Workforce Advisory Committee with the Mental Health Commission of Canada. Welcome. Good to have you here.
Thank you, Gary.
We're going to talk about a survey, a study that Sun Life has been doing for, what, 3 years now?
That's right, yeah.
What kind of things are you looking at with people in Canada?
Well, we were particularly interested this year in the relationship between work and health, and in particular the relationship between the economy and how people are coping with today's economy.
Right. Interesting to ask young people that question, Doctor, don't you think so?
I think it's very interesting, and I think that the key aspect of this study was the fact that we looked at underemployment as well as just regular employment and the role that played in the results as well.
One of the things you found that 90% of 18 to 24-year-olds experience excessive stress. 72% of adult Canadians are feeling overwhelmed. What's the difference between excessive stress and overwhelmed?
That's a good question. I would think that excessive stress is probably where you've gone past the point of being able to cope with it.
Right.
Overwhelmed, you're probably at the point that you can still manage some coping.
Because I worry when I see 72% of adult Canadians are feeling overwhelmed. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's a lot of people with a lot of, 72%. Yeah. Overwhelmed is a big word.
So those are the folks who have identified at least one source of excessive stress.
Yeah.
The leading causes are relationships, work, money, and health.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that 2 of those 4 leading causes relate to one's employment situation, that's pretty telling.
Right. Does it bother you that young Canadians, like 90%, say they're stressed about especially work and getting the right job, which leads to worries about money and so on, right?
Well, you're right. Those tied very closely together, and I think it's important that we look at this and try and resolve some of these issues around the financial aspects, the student loans, and the burden that these young people are bearing when they head into the workforce.
But when I was reading this, I was like, well, what about when they get out in the real world? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not easy then either. It doesn't necessarily get less stressful. As we were talking in the break here, I think we as people learn how to cope with that stress and how to manage it so we can make it through every day.
Yeah, in fact, there's good news here, which is that there's a positive relationship between work and health.
Yeah.
We ask Canadians, to what extent they feel emotionally healthy, physically healthy across a range of measures. Full-time employed Canadians are better off than part-time employed Canadians, who are in turn are better off than unemployed.
And underemployment can mean several things, right? Like, for one, it can mean underutilized, and that's also a concern.
Well, I believe we're seeing a lot of graduates coming out of university not able to get into the role and the job that they want to get into.
Yeah.
And it's a couple of things. There's an expectation that they should immediately be able to walk into the job they want, and that may not be the case. And the other thing is that maybe the roles they want are not available as well.
Right.
And so
simply not available.
That's right.
Yeah. So maybe you make wiser choices when you're going into whatever field of study you want to go into, but it's hard to predict that sort of thing.
It is.
The other thing I like here, there are some positive things, and good solid employment and a good solid a place of work makes for overall better health, right?
Yeah, and if you're in the workplace, you're lucky enough to have a full-time job and an employer-sponsored benefits plan. Take advantage.
Is that right?
Take advantage of the wellness programs.
Yeah, it's something you guys recommend?
Absolutely. The wellness programs that are in place in workplaces across the country are doing real good.
Yeah.
I think employee assistance programs are important too if you're feeling stressed. That's one of the key messages for individual Canadians.
And I think, and I'm guilty of it too, I underutilize that, what's available to me, and people should inform themselves, I think, more of that because it does promote better health, and things that are available to people to use can help you out in the long run. There's no health-wise. What do you think, Doctor?
I believe so, and I think employers are doing a better job working with people like benefits providers and EAP providers to improve the whole culture of the workplace. And there's a lot of activity going on out there. The Mental Health Commission has made the workplace one of their priorities, and with a couple of standard-setting organizations, we'll soon be launching a national standard on psychological health and safety in the workplace as well.
Oh, that's interesting, eh? That's very. I'm glad you guys do this survey, this study, because it really points out a lot of interesting things about people, doesn't it?
It sure does.
Yeah. Thanks for dropping by to share the info with us.
Thanks very much.
And don't worry, young people. The more you get, into the workplace and life, the less stress you'll have because you'll learn to deal with it. I think, anyway.